about what we're doing in the community. My name is Natasha Rosofsky. I work with United Way Capital Area, and I'm the chair of the Bastrop County Long-Term Recovery Committee. And I'm going to let my colleagues here introduce themselves, and there will be a couple of presentations. So we'll start.
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Disco-Shearer. I'm the National Director for St. Vincent de Paul, and I'm also the Director for the State of Texas for the Disaster Case Management Program.
My name is Gail Bertrand. I'm with the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, and I'm the Community Coordinator for this event.
And I am Andy Smith. I am the pastor of the First United Methodist Church here in Bastrop, and serve as vice chair of the Bastrop County Long-Term Recovery Committee. We've got a flyer up here. This green one has our fact sheet that has a little bit about us, including our mission statement and our 8 work areas for the Long-Term Recovery Committee. And we have some of our chairpersons for our work areas here. Dale, that you just met, is our chairperson for case management. This is Gene Crick right here in front of me. He's our chairperson for communications. Susan, no guest down there on the end, is our construction management chairperson. She's wearing 2 hats. Well, it's more than 2, but 2 in this room. She's also part of the Community Recovery Committee that you're going to hear about in a minute. We've got other committees, and those chairpersons are not able to be here today. We're going to talk to you just a little bit about what is a long-term recovery committee, what is the work that we're doing, but we also want to go ahead and, I think this would be a good time to go ahead and introduce the other table, which is our community recovery committee. So Rachel, if you would take care of that.
I'm going to stand up since this is here so everybody can see us. I'm Rachel Clamper. I'm the county planner for Bastrop County, and I'm also the lead for the Bastrop County Community Recovery Committee, which is a court-appointed committee, and we'll talk a little bit about that more. Do you want to introduce yourselves, or do you want me to? This is Commissioner Pena. He is the county commissioner for Precinct 1 here in the Bastrop area. This is Susan Nogas, which they just mentioned, who is on both committees and who also put together this fantastic event. So. Also on our committee is Dorothy Skarnulis, and she was appointed by the Bastrop County Commissioners Court as a community member. She's also the chair of the Keep Bastrop County Beautiful organization. And then Dr. Frances Dennis is one of our committee membership alternates, but she's also going to serve as an advisor. She's a professor at the UT Arlington, but she also has a home here. And we're super pleased that she's going to be helping us out. And that's our representation here.
Okay, we're going to start off and just give an overview, if you're not familiar with what a long-term recovery committee does, and talk about the Bastrop County Long-Term Recovery Committee. I can say, because I'm working with 23 counties throughout the state of Texas in this disaster, I am very proud of this group. It is an outstanding committee, this community. The mission statement of the Bastrop County Long-Term Recovery Committee is to strengthen regional disaster coordination through information sharing, simplifying the access to available resources for individuals and families, and jointly resolving cases with unmet needs from disaster areas. So they work really hard on this, and it's important too to have a solid mission statement, which this committee does. You recognize this photo, right? We want to move away from this, right? Yeah, we don't want to go back there. We don't want to be there. But the BCLTRC helps move survivors from the disaster to calmer times. Doesn't that feel like a good place to be? We'd like to be at that location right now. So that's what the committee does. It helps families to meet unmet needs. Thought we'd talk a little bit about phases of a disaster because it's important. One of the things that long-term recovery committees do, they not only help families recover, but they also help prevent future disasters and help in preparedness. We had the incident, which was the worst wildfires we've had in the state's history this year. We had the response, which was amazing for this community. And now we're in the recovery phase. The recovery phase can take anywhere from, we had this, we started this a few months ago, and it can go up to 3 to 5 years. I can tell you that St. Vincent de Paul, we do disaster recovery all over the United States. We're still working with Katrina evacuees. We're still working with Hurricane Ike in Texas. We're still working Hurricane Alex in Texas. We're still working the West Texas wildfires. So it takes a long time. One of the things I would say is that it takes a lot of patience, and you really need a community commitment, because a lot of people rush to the aid of communities at the very beginning, but we need people through this long phase. We need them through the recovery phase, which can be up to several years. And then you have the mitigation phase. So after, one of the things that the long-term recovery can do to help the community is to prepare for future disasters by helping families, and through all these exhibits today, what can they do to for fire retardants and other things to prevent this disaster from happening in the future? Things like, what can you do to not have vegetation close to your home? So those are some of the things that the Long-Term Recovery Committee can do to have workshops to help educate the community. And then the other part of the cycle is preparedness. We don't want to ever go through this again, right? So what can we do? And I really think, looking at this community, even though there were some fatalities, it was minimal compared to what it could have been. I think this community did an awesome job of saving lives. I really do. But what can we do in the future? So the Long-Term Recovery Committee can help with those different phases. What the Long-Term Recovery Committee doesn't do is response. And that's the job of the county, and that's the first responders. As Pastor Andy mentioned, there's several subcommittees, which we call work areas. One is case management, and as I said, I'm with St. Vincent de Paul. I'm a national director, and case management is one of the areas that we do across the country that we're doing in this disaster, where we help connect families with resources, and we work with the Unmet Needs Committee of the Long-Term Recovery Committee. Everybody brings expertise to the table. We need a communications committee. We need to be able to let the community know what we're doing. Construction management, crucial to have great people in that area. Donated goods, a disaster within a disaster. In every disaster, you get a lot of well-meaning people that send a lot of things to communities. And what do communities need the most? Cash. You need cash so you can buy new goods. You need cash so communities can recover. But people always want to give something because it makes them feel good about helping. But you need someone to be able to manage the donated goods. Financial resources management. It's going to take a lot of money to recover from this disaster. FEMA has certain things they can do that are allowed by Congress, but they can't do everything. The state has certain things that they can do. Insurance companies have certain things that they can do. But it's really up to the community and to the voluntary organizations active in disaster to try to pull together and look for funding to help communities recover. And that's going to take a long time for us to do that, but we're working on looking for financial resources. This next one is a key component. We're going through a tough time right now, right before the holidays. We need spiritual, emotional, and mental health support, and we have a subcommittee to work on that. And we're really going to look at some of the issues that we know our families are going to face during the holidays. We have an unmet needs roundtable, and that's where this subgroup, we have a subcommittee that gets together, and case management comes and presents cases to that unmet needs roundtable in order to access resources for those families. We never tell the names of the families that we're presenting. We guard the privacy of those individuals, because especially in smaller communities, no one needs to know anyone's business. And so one of the things about case management is that we're very guarded about the families that we're serving. And then volunteer management. None of this works without volunteer management. Everyone's a volunteer on this committee, and we need to work together on the volunteer management side to be able to use people's talents in the right area. Gene is great with computers. Some of us aren't good with computers, and so we need to be able to put people where we can use their assets. Here's what we do. We help survivors find relief and recovery resources. We connect survivors to voluntary organizations active in disaster. The Society of St. Vincent de Paul is a national voluntary organization active in disaster. United Methodist Committee on Relief, which Pastor Andy's part of, is a national voluntary organization active in disaster. And we have many, many others, Lutheran Disaster Social Services. We have a number of groups, the Southern Baptist Men and Texas Baptist Men. We have a number of groups that are voluntary organizations active in disaster. We also want to make sure that we are providing a documented, so we'll have a set of policies that we put out to the community on how we decide on how we're gonna deliver services. And we wanna make sure that it's an equitable process for everyone, and our committee will review that based on those guidelines that'll be pre-published to the community. This is a photo of some of our voluntary case managers helping at the DRC in Bastrop. And on one of the days, we saw up to 300 families in one day. So it's been an intense journey. We invite all organizations willing to provide material, financial, and volunteer labor resources for the recovery process to join others in this community-based Bastrop Long-Term Recovery Committee. Thank you. Now, we have any questions from this committee?
Yes, sir.
How are you funded?
There are a large number of volunteer organizations that we represent. We've had up to 70 different organizations have attended our meetings. Now, not all of those will stay at our Unmet Needs Roundtable, but some will. We've applied for some smaller grants for administration through Church World Service, and we'll be approaching a couple of other organizations for some grants for some of our administrative work. But the bulk of what we do will be coordinating assistance from various volunteer organizations. For example, that monies that have been given to United Way, monies that have been given to Catholic Charities. We are negotiating closely with the Austin Community Foundation, who received fire money from the Willie Nelson and George Strait concert. We don't have them to the table yet, but we're confident that they will be. They're going to want to be part of this, so we feel confident about this. There's going to be lots of different voluntary organizations, even local churches, local Rotary clubs, Lions clubs, all of those kind of things are also going to be partners. If they can bring money, materials, or manpower, volunteer labor to the table, they're welcome, and they're going to be part of our organization. We will make every attempt to, donor intent is very important, and so we won't be using any money that was given for survivors. None of that will be used administratively, but we are seeking some grants to help us administratively, because there are considerable administrative costs. I've got to mention St. Vincent de Paul, who's doing our case management, very important, and they're using some of their own funding, and they're also applying for some funding, some grants for that's going to be a large chunk of our administrative costs. But the aid comes from these various organizations that come to the table. More questions? Really? I just want to say that we have wonderful community support. We have local persons and organizations that are involved. We also are receiving wonderful support from our county, our state, from our government, our national government, FEMA, lots of other organizations that are pulling together and helping us to do this work. And we are committed to be just what it says, a long-term recovery, to be in it for the long haul, and to be here until all the unmet needs of individuals and families are met. Not everyone that applies to us will qualify for our assistance. It's not just anybody that wants a new truck can come to it. No, it's going to be need-based, and I can't emphasize enough the importance of case management that we will be doing through this whole process. The case managers drive the whole thing. They work individually with families and individuals, and they develop a recovery plan, so there is personal responsibility and accountability by on the survivor's part. They're responsible for their own recovery we're helping them all we can, but they develop a recovery plan, and then we bring the resources to the table to help them accomplish it based upon their needs, which are fully verified and vetted. And all these organizations, that's one of the reasons you have a long-term recovery committee, is to bring all these organizations together, to avoid duplication of benefits, and to get the right help to the right people so that they can rebuild their lives. Yes,
Approximately how many families is each of the case managers working with?
I have no idea. What,
About 70 each right now.
Right.
How many case managers?
7.
Seven?
Yeah, and we've seen about 1,094 right now, so. But not everyone, we see families in tears, and not everybody has the same needs. We have some families with dire needs.
if folks want to get in touch with our case managers, they call 211. Call 211, they put in the zip code, I believe, and we're gonna get that, make sure that it's working. Dina?
Yeah, so if you are a fire survivor and you have insurance, would you still go see case managers?
Yes.
Yes.
We see people regardless of income, insurance.
That was a loaded question. I was hoping for that answer.
And there may be ways in which they can be helped.
Yes.
That a lot of people do have insurance, a lot of them are underinsured. So the case manager